Okay, for today's video, we are going to talk about social choice theory. So what is social choice theory? Social choice theory is a branch of economics and political science that analyzes the mechanisms by which the preferences of individuals are aggregated into group decisions. It seeks to understand how different voting systems work and how to evaluate their fairness and efficiency in representing the preferences of the members of a group. An interesting aspect of social choice theory is that it uses mathematical models and axiomatic approaches to deduce conclusions about the voting systems and processes, providing new insights into how democratic decision making can be improved. This field has important implications for designing political institutions and electoral systems that reflect the values and aspirations of society. So today, yung papag-usapan natin yung iba't ibang mga social choice theory, yung mga voting methods, kung paano nila nagagawang fair iyon o kung paano yung mga system sila sa pag-vote. So yun yung papag-usapan natin for today. So our first voting system is the majority voting system. So it is a simple voting system where the candidate with the most first place votes wins the election. So makikita natin dito, sino yung pinakamaraming first place votes dito? So si A may 7, si 6, may C, si 5. So ang una nating voting system is the majority voting system. So it is a simple voting system where the candidate with the most first place votes wins the election. So makikita natin dito, sino kaya yung pinakamaraming first place votes? Dito, si A may 7 votes na first place, si C may 6, si A meron ulit 5, tapos si B may 3. Si letter D mukhang hindi ata siya ng first place kasi hindi siya paborito. So makikita natin dito yung number of votes is 21. So we need to divide 21 by 2, which is 10.5. So that is 50% of 21. So meaning, kailangan more than 50% yung makuhang votes. So makikita natin dito, si A, 7 plus 5 yung nakuha niyang votes, so magiging 12. So makikita natin dito na si 12 ang mananalo dito sa voting system na to dahil siya yung majority. More than 10.5 yung 12 eh. So dako naman tayo sa criterion na majority voting systems guarantee majority criterion. So ano nga ba ang majority criterion? So the majority criterion means that if a candidate receives more than 50% of the first place votes, they should win the election. It ensures that candidate who is most preferred by the majority of voters is elected. So ang next voting method natin is the plurality method. So it is a voting system in which the candidate with the most first place votes is declared the winner. So yung pagkakaiba nito sa majority voting system, dito naman kung sino yung pinakamadaming first place votes, hindi yung more than 50% kailangan. So basta mas marami siya kaysa dun sa iba, siya yung mananalo. So it fills the Condorcet criterion, majority criterion, and the independence of irrelevant alternatives. So tingnan muna natin dito, di ba? So makikita natin na sa plurality, pinakamaraming votes na first place si A. So siya yung mananalo. So bakit daw natatalo sa majority criterion? Kasi yung 15 naman, hindi naman siya 50%, more than 50% ng 35. Tapos, ano kaya yung Condorcet criterion? So, the Condorcet criterion is a voting system criterion that requires that if there is a candidate who would win in a head-to-head matchup against every other candidate, then that candidate should win the election. So makikita natin dito, if A versus B, sino kaya mananalo? So dito, mas mataas yung rank ni A dito kaysa kay B, so makukuha niya yung 15 votes. Dito naman, mas mataas yung rank ni B kaysa kay A, so makukuha niya yung 12. So makikita natin dito. So dito, mas mataas yung si A kaysa kay B, so makukuha niya yung 5. Dito, mas mataas naman si B, so makukuha niya yung 3. So add natin sila, yung total votes ni A is 20, total votes ni B is 15. So sino mas malaki? So yung mananalo ay si A. So dito naman, sino mas marami? I mean, sino mas mataas na rank sa column na to, si A o si C? si A. So 15 makukuha niya si C. Since mas mataas si C sa lahat ng columns dito, makukuha niya ang 12, 5, at saka 3. So add natin yan. Makukuha ni C is total ng 20. Si A naman, total votes niya ay 15. So dito, mananalo si C. So dito naman sa A versus D, mas mataas si A dito kay D, kaya makuha niya 15 votes, tapos mas mataas si... So dito, mas mataas naman si D kaysa kay A, so makukuha niya yung 12 votes. Dito, mas mataas pa rin si D, so makukuha niya yung 5. Tapos dito, mas mataas naman si A, so makukuha niya yung 3. So 15 plus 3 is equal to 18. Tapos si D, 12 plus 5 is equal to 17. So sino mas mataas? Yung mas mataas ay si A. So makikita natin dito, di ba? Kung sino mas mataas based on majority criterion pala to yung pag kukumpara natin ng votes nila. So add natin yung 20 plus 15, so divided yung 50% nun, kailangan more than 50% yung makuha nung mas mataas. So dito, since more than 50% yung 20 votes, mananalo si A. So ganun yung gagawin lahat dito sa part na to. So next naman is C versus B. So mas mataas si B dito, makuha niya yung 15. Mas mataas si C dito, makuha niya yung 12. Mas mataas si C dito, makuha niya yung 5. Mas mataas si B dito, makuha niya yung 3. So add natin silang lahat. Magiging 17 versus 18. And mananalo si B. Dito naman, mas mataas si C kaysa kay D dito. Makuha niya yung 15. Mas mataas si C dito ulit. Makuha niya yung 12. Mas mataas naman si D dito, so makukuha niya yung 5. Dito, mas mataas pa rin si C, so makukuha niya yung 3. So overwhelming pala si C dito sa part na to. So 30 versus 5. So malamang mananalo si C. So sa last one naman, mas mataas si B kaysa kay D dito. So makukuha niya yung 15. Mas mataas si D kaysa kay B dito. So makukuha niya yung 12. Mas mataas si D dito kaysa kay B, makukuha niya yung 5. Tapos mas mataas si B dito kaysa kay D, so makukuha niya yung 3. So, add natin silang lahat. 17 versus 18, makukuha ni B yung panalo kasi mas mataas siya kay 17. So, yung ginawa natin dito natin ma-check yung Condorcet criterion. So, after having a head-to-head challenge with all the possible combinations, makikita natin dito na magulo pa rin. So, walang clear winner. So, kaya nag-fail yung plurality sa Condorcet kasi the plurality method fails to satisfy the Condorcet criterion because it does not take into account the relative ranking of the candidates by voters. So, actually, yung ginawa natin kanina, yung pag-head-to-head challenge, yung process na yan is actually our next voting method, which is the Condorcet method. So yung ginawa natin dito, yung pag-head-to-head challenge ng every possible combination para makita kung sino yung manalo, yan yung paggagamit ng Condorcet method. So makikita natin dito na walang clear winner. So ibig sabihin, para manalo sa Condorcet method, kailangan lahat ng matches niya, pag pinag-head-to-head sila, manalo siya. So dahil dito, walang nanalo ng overall, like walang nanalo ng A versus B, A versus C, A versus D, walang overall winner. So walang winner dito sa Condorcet method na to, sa example na to. So next naman, sinasabi natin kanina na the independence of irrelevant alternatives. So nasabi naman natin kanina, yung independence of irrelevant alternatives, hindi yan nasa-satisfy ng plurality. So ano nga ba yung criterion ng independence of irrelevant alternatives? So the independence of irrelevant alternatives, or IIA, is a criterion for evaluating the fairness of a voting system. It states that the relative ranking of two candidates should not change based on the presence or absence of a third candidate who is not a strong contender. In other words, if the voters' preference between two candidates is unchanged when a third or less favored candidate is removed from the race, then the voting system satisfied the IIA. So nakita naman natin kanina na parang hindi naman nasatisfy yun. So, ibig sabihin, hindi talaga nasasatisfy ng plurality yung IIA. So next, the plurality method fails to satisfy the independence of irrelevant alternative criterion because the addition or removal of a candidate who is unlikely to win can change the outcome of the election between the remaining candidates, which violates the IIA principle. So yun nga, na-discuss na natin kung ano yung Condorcet method kanina. So, bale yung itong process na to, yan yung Condorcet method, yung pag-head-to-head challenge. So, the Condorcet method may fail to satisfy the majority criterion, Pareto criterion, and the independence of irrelevant alternatives. While it can identify the Condorcet winner, it may not be the best voting method to meet all desirable properties of a fair and efficient system. Other methods such as instant runoff voting or approval voting may be better suited for certain criteria or goals. So na-discuss na natin kanina yung IIA, pati yung majority criterion. So ano ba yung sinasabi dito na Pareto criterion na hindi nasasatisfy ng Condorcet criterion? So the Pareto criterion is a desirable property of a fair and efficient voting system. It states that if all voters prefer candidate A over candidate B, then candidate A should win the election. In other words, if there is a clear preference for one candidate over another among all voters, then preferred candidate should be the winner of the election. The Pareto criterion is important because it ensures that the outcome of the election reflects the preferences of the majority of voters and not just a minority. However, not all voting methods satisfy the Pareto criterion, just like yung Condorcet method, and some methods may prioritize other desirable properties of Pareto. So our next method is actually the board account method. It assigns points to candidates based on their ranking on each voter's preference list. So for the board account method, makikita natin dito na for letter A, since naka first place siya dito sa column na to, i-multiply natin yung 15 at saka yung 3 points, tapos magiging 45. Tapos si letter B, magiging 2 points times 15 kasi second place lang yung nakuha niya dito. So makukuha niya 30. So letter C naman, makukuha niya yung 1 times 15 kasi third place lang siya. So makukuha niya yung 15. Tapos sa fourth place naman, si letter D, makuha niya yung 0 times 15. Kawawa naman si letter D, so makuha niya lang 0. So apply lang yan sa ibang columns na yan. Tapos i-add natin sila. So pag in-add natin yung total ni A, makuha niya 53. Add natin yung total ni B, makuha niya yung 51. Add natin yung total ni C, makuha niya yung 67. And add natin total ni D, makuha niya yung 39. So makikita natin dito, i-compare natin kung sino pinakamarami sa mga total votes nila based on the board account. So si C, ang winner dito dahil yung nakuha niya is 67. So the board account method fails to satisfy the majority criterion and the independence of irrelevant alternative criterion. The former requires the winner to have majority of votes, while the latter demands that the relative ranking of two candidates should not change due to the presence or absence of another candidate who is not a strong contender. So nakita na naman natin yun na hindi talaga magagawa ng board account method yung majority criterion at saka yung IIA based on this definition. So next one is the Hare method or the method of successive elimination, which involves repeatedly removing the candidate who is least preferred by voters until a winner is determined. This process continues in stages until all other candidates have been deleted or until there is a tie between two or more candidates. So sa first stage, ang pinaka least na may first place votes is si B. So makita natin tatlong votes lang meron siya. So aalisin natin si B, aalisin natin lahat ng letter B. So makikita natin dito, magiging bakante to. So ibig sabihin, mag-shift up yung lahat ng mga nasa baba. So here naman, ang pinaka least ay si D. Yan. Dahil 5 lang meron siya. So ayun, natanggal na natin si D, nag-shift up sila, at ngayon ito na yung next stage. So, si A naman, 15 votes lang meron siya. Si C naman meron siyang 12 plus 5 plus 3. So makikita naman natin na mas marami si C kaysa kay A. So tatanggalin na natin si A. Tapos mag-shift up si C. At makikita natin na sa Hare method ay mananalo si letter C. So the Hare method can fail the monotonicity criterion because a candidate who was previously in the lead may lose if voters' preferences change in a way that reduces their original votes and they no longer meet the threshold to win. So, ano naman yung next criterion natin? What is the monotonicity criterion? The monotonicity criterion means that a winning candidate should still win in re-election if only favorable changes to the votes were made. So nakita naman natin sa Hare method kanina na hindi na satisfy yung criterion na yun. So the next method is actually the sequential pairwise method. It starts with an agenda or a specific order in which candidates are compared to each other in a one-on-one contest. So, actually, medyo same lang to with the Condorcet method, pero meron siyang agenda. So, ano ba yung agenda? Ito yung agenda. So, B, C, D, A. So, unang maglalaban is si B, tsaka si C. So, dahil matatalo si C, tanggal na si C. So, kakalabanin niya naman si D. So, D versus B. Nanalo si B dito. Tapos, kakalabanin niya naman si A. So, B versus A. Kaso dito naman, nanalo si A. So, matatanggal si B. So, ibig sabihin, ang mananalo dito is si A. Kasi di katulad ng Condorcet method na kukunin lahat ng possible combinations tapos makikita kung sino yung pinakamaraming natalo. I mean like kung natalo niya lahat ng kalaban niya, dito naman tatanggalin talaga yung mga natalo na kalaban. Tapos yung meron silang agenda. So dito mauuna si B versus C, tapos kung sino manalo doon, kakalabanin si D, kung sino manalo doon, kakalabanin si A. So, the first candidate is pitted against the second, and if more voters rank the first candidate above the second, then the first candidate wins. The winner then competes against the third candidate in the same manner while losers are eliminated. This process continues until only one candidate remains, and that candidate is declared the winner. So this sa example na to, it is letter A. So the sequential pairwise method fails the independence of irrelevant alternatives and Pareto criterion because the ranking of alternatives can change when a new one is added, and it does not guarantee the choice preferred by all decision makers. So makikita natin talaga hindi niya masasatisfy yung dalawang criterion na yan. So next naman is the approval voting. So approval voting is a voting method where each voter selects the candidate they deem acceptable with the option to choose none, one, more than one, or all of the candidates. So the candidate with the most votes is declared the winner of the election. So actually dito sa approval voting, walang ranking yan. Basta, depende sa voter kung gusto niya i-shade lahat, kung gusto niya mag-shade ng onti lang, or yun nga, one, none, more than one, or all of the candidates. So basta, kung sino yung pinakamaraming shade, pag kinuha lahat ng ballots, siya yung mananalo. So, ito yung mga other na criterion na hindi na-discuss in relation with the voting methods. So, all voters should be treated equally. All candidates should be treated equally. Unanimity, non-dictatorship. So, all voters should be treated equally. Kailangan lahat sila pare-pareho yung rights. All candidates should be treated equally. Yung mga candidates naman, kailangan pare-pareho yung rights nila. Where all candidates in a fair election should be treated equally with no candidate being granted more privilege than the other. So sa unanimity naman, unanimity should be achieved in a fair voting system. This means that if every individual prefers a certain option to another, then the resulting societal choice should also prefer the same option. So non-dictatorship, a fair social choice function should not be controlled by a single individual's preference. So hindi katulad sa North Korea na yung nananalo na lang palagi ay si Kim Jong-un dahil sabi niya, dito kailangan para sa criterion na to, dapat walang dictator, dapat talagang democratic siya and hindi siya based on a single person. So in other words, the system should not be a dictatorship where one person has all the power to decide the outcome. So approval voting fails the majority and Condorcet criterion because a candidate can win without a majority of first choice votes, and the winner may not be the candidate who would win in a head-to-head matchup against every other candidate.